Thank goodness the preseason is over. The Falcons lost 31-0 against the Jags to close it out. I love how Raheem Morris greeted Doug Peterson at the 50-yard line with a huge smile on his face despite getting curb stomped, because I don't think anyone is more excited about the preseason being done than Raheem Morris. So we're going to run through a 53-man roster projection following 3 preseason games. If you are a little bit queasy about Atlanta's performance in the preseason, hopefully this graphic right here will calm your nerves a little bit. I went back and looked at every team that made the postseason since the NFL expanded to 17-game schedule, and you'll see that 9 teams have made the postseason going winless in the preseason. 4 teams have made it going 3-0. So you're kind of more likely to make the playoffs if you don't win a single game than if you do win all 3 games. But without further ado, let's run through my 53-man roster projection. And right off the bat, this is probably the most difficult decision I had to make. Taylor Heinicke. Do the Falcons keep him or not? I go back and forth on Heinicke making this roster. We were not really impressed by what we saw from him in the preseason. You could save a little over $1 million in cap space by moving on for him. There are a lot of good signs towards reasons to move on from Taylor Heinicke, but ultimately, if Raheem Morris just wants to have 3 quarterbacks, it doesn't matter how bad Heinicke looked, he might just keep all 3 quarterbacks. But if there's one guy on this list today that is on the outside looking in, I think it's Heinicke. Moving on to the running backs now. I've got Bijan, Algier, Avery Williams, and then Jace McClellan. So the top 3 are locks in my opinion. It's Jace McClellan, the rookie out of Alabama, or Carlos Washington. Reason why I went with McClellan is, 1, I don't think Terry Fontenot wants to cut a very recent draft pick of his. 2, I think if Jace McClellan hits the waiver wire, another team might claim him. If Carlos Washington does, he'll probably get through no problem, and then the Falcons can just bring him back to their practice squad. So now we can check out the wide receivers. I've got Atlanta keeping 6 wideouts. Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Kadarrell Hodge, and Casey Washington are all locks to make this roster. It's that 6th spot where I go with Chris Blair, who was probably the most impressive player on either side of the football after maybe Natrone Brooks at corner this preseason. He played a lot, and he had some really big plays, like that big reception for Michael Penix in Game 1 of the preseason. So if the Falcons carry 6 wideouts, Chris Blair, in my eyes, is number 6. As for the tight end depth chart, Kyle Pitts, Charlie Werner, and Ross Dwelly. I'm only carrying 3 tight ends. Maybe the Falcons take 4, although I don't really see this being a 4 tight end room just because this offense screams pass. John Fitzpatrick, unfortunately, is left out. I just feel like the Falcons have kind of run the John Fitzpatrick train long enough to know they kind of have a good idea what they have in him. So they might want to try a different player like Dwelly instead. Now, roster cutdown day is this upcoming Tuesday. It'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central. Subscribe right now. Turn on your notifications. If you don't like the content, you can always unsubscribe in a week. But you're going to want to know who gets cut on Tuesday, and you'll be the first to know if you're subscribed and you have your notifications on. Now, as for the offensive line, I'm going with 8 O-linemen. I don't like it, and if they don't keep Heinicke, I think that extra roster spot goes to an offensive lineman like Kendall Hinton. But you got your 5 starters. You got Storm Norton. He's your swing tackle. Javon Gwynn, I gave the slight edge as your swing guard. And then Ryan Uziel as your backup center. I would like to see one more offensive lineman, although the Falcons' offensive line has been historically very healthy. So if there's one unit I'm confident in that stays healthy for the season, knock on wood, it's the O-line. Now, we're going to look at the defense in just a moment, but today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. One thing I really enjoy about Game Time is they offer the Game Time guarantee. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So go catch a Falcons regular season game, a Braves game, or any other sporting event in your local area. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Now on to the defense. Zach Harrison, David Onyemata, Grady Jarrett, Orhorhoro, and I would say Brandon Dorlus, just because those guys being rookies, are all locks to make the roster. Then players I'm very comfortable with making the roster: Taquan Graham, Kentavious Street, Eddie Goldman. The reason why I took those three guys as the next group is we didn't see them at all in the last 2 weeks of the preseason. I think if there were concerns about them making the roster, they would have played. So, to me, this is one of the more deeper rooms the Falcons have. Eddie Goldman, we haven't seen on an NFL field in 3 years, since 2021. But he's the only guy well over 300 pounds. They're going to need him in the middle of that defense when it's 3rd and goal at the 1-yard line. That's his role on this team. As for the other ones, Kentavious Street has been pretty impressive since being traded back in, was it October, November, from the Eagles to Atlanta. And I feel like everyone else has a pretty obvious role on this defense. Now, for the linebacker room, Judon, Ellis, Anderson, Carter, Ebiketie, and Landman, they are all locks to make this roster. Actually, they're all locks. JT Bertrand, a rookie, he's been super impressive so far in the preseason. He's going nowhere. James Smith-Williams, he's going to be your backup outside linebacker along with Arnold Ebiketie or Lorenzo Carter. That'll be a fun little 3-way battle for the starting gig opposite of Judon. But this room seems pretty cut and dry to me. Now, speaking of one of the newest members of the Falcons roster, Matthew Judon, over or under 10 sacks for him this season? Can the Falcons finally get a double-digit sack player for the first time in almost a decade since Vic Beasley? Let me know in the comment section, O for over or U for under. Now, as for your corners, I've got 6. A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, D. Alford, Antonio Hamilton, Clark Phillips, and Kevin King. Kevin King playing in the 3rd preseason game made me a little bit unsure if he was a lock to make the roster. He had a really good play, and then he gave up a touchdown. But I still think these are your 6 players. If one of the guys, it would really be Kevin King. If he were not to make the roster, I think it would be for Natrone Brooks. But I think they're going to be very confident and very, on the edge of their seat that Brooks clears the waiver wire and they bring him back on their practice squad. He was one of the bigger playmakers for this defense in the preseason. Now, for your safeties, Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, Richie Grant, and DeMarco Hellams. I know what you're thinking. Petey, DeMarco Hellams got injured. Yes, but they did not place DeMarco Hellams on injured reserve. So, my suspicion is they want to get him through roster cutdown day and then place him on IR afterwards, or they don't think he needs IR at all. He went down in the first preseason game against the Dolphins. What was that, August 10th-ish, give or take? Maybe they feel like it's a 6-week recovery for him, which would get him back on the field sometime around week 2 or week 3. So Hellams, even though he's unavailable, I don't think they want to lose him for the whole season or for a long portion of the season. So he gets through even though he's injured because they value him and they think he can come back sometime in the fall. And then finally, your special teamers. Bradley Pinion, Younghoe Koo, Liam McCullough. I don't know how much Younghoe Koo paid the Falcons offense to not score a point today or get even really an opportunity to kick a field goal, but the preseason finale was the best thing to happen to Koo because he couldn't miss a kick because he couldn't take a kick. So big win for him. But grade the Falcons roster. I recently saw Madden's roster ratings for all 32 teams. I think Atlanta was 83. It was either 82, 83, or 84. So how would you rate the Falcons roster? Scale it 1 to 100. Let me know in the comment section below.